Whenever I did talk about it, it has never been taken seriously anyways. That's nonsense. Obviously, I wouldn't say anything at all at some point.
Dear Miss Katens, you have lived a very long and exciting life so far, but there is one particular experience from your childhood that has to do with the death of your father and grandmother, and which you remember very clearly to this day. Would you please explain what exactly happened back then?
Yes. I remember that my dad died. 3 months later, my grandmother passed away as well. I remember one particular event, which I will never forget. It is so present within me, as if it had happened a couple of days ago. I was not able to talk about it the following years after it had happened. I am not quite sure why. I was laying in bed, or should I rather say on a cot. And I think the blanket fell off of me, or something like that, because I eventually woke up. I looked straight towards the door, which led to the kitchen, and I could see my dad standing there, as well as my grandmother. Both of them were dressed in white shirts. My dad began to walk towards me and covered me with the blanket. I was not afraid at all. He didn't talk, and neither did I. As soon as he put the blanket on me, he walked back to the door where my grandmother was still standing. And all of a sudden, both of them disappeared, and I fell asleep again. I won't let anybody talk me out of this experience, that it didn't happen just like that.
That means that there's a time period of 3 months between the death of your father and grandmother.
Yes, my grandmother passed away 3 months after. My father died in September, and my grandmother in December.
You did not experience an after-death contact after the death of your father, but you certainly did after the death of your grandmother.
Yes, it was not until my grandmother was gone as well.
How did you experience the death of your father? He passed away whilst still quite young, didn't he?
All I know is that he came home from work. He stepped into the apartment, into the hallway, and said, "Good evening" together. But then he collapsed. My stepmother called a doctor. And after he arrived, my father was carried into the living room on the couch. They have probably treated him with some medicine. I am not sure about that. But I remember him being carried to the bed afterwards, and eventually he had died there. My dad had been taken prisoner in Norway back then, and he was only 41 years old when he passed away. I assume he may have suffered from a heart deficiency due to his past, and had died because of that.
Were you in close contact with him? Was that a close relationship?
Yes. Unfortunately, we only had 6 months together after he had been released. I can remember it so clearly. Excuse me. I can remember it so clearly, because all of those memories that I have of him are absolutely loving and beautiful. He has been the only human in my whole life that I had such a deep connection with, even if it was only for half a year. He had actually been my first stepfather. I lived in an orphanage as a child. I don't know my biological parents at all. At some point I was adopted, but have, as a little child, only experienced my stepmother for years. But my dad, as I always call him, Dad or Daddy, he joined us only later on, as soon as he was released.
How did you and your family feel when your father returned from being a prisoner of war?
I remember that he arrived late at night. I even remember how he revealed himself and how he entered the apartment. Apparently, nobody expected him to return. He was downstairs, standing in the garden, right in front of the bedroom's window. And prior to that, he had looked for a long pole. Back then, the clothes were hung up outside on a clothesline rope, and they were fixated with some equipment for the line to stay in place. He had taken one of these poles and knocked on the window. That's how he was noticed, and my stepmother then opened the door. I remember how I was sitting on his lap, even though I had never seen him before. I was sitting on his lap, and we hugged each other in such a precious way. He was actually a baker by trade, but later on continued to work in a carpentry in our village. And I remember him getting a blue bicycle at some point. I always looked outside the window, waiting for my daddy to come home from work finally.
You have lots of detailed memories. It certainly was a deep connection.
It definitely was. It has been such a deep connection that I, even as a grown woman, couldn't get over it. One day, I decided to go to Norway. I thought one has to let go at one point. Therefore, I drove to Norway as part of a tour group. We have been to Tromsø, for instance, and went to the Arctic Cathedral. Back then, I lived in Cologne still. I bought myself a small card, something like a thank you note. And I wrote some things in there for my dad, and I took a rose with me. Later on in the evening, I told the group that I was coming back soon. I went to the Arctic Ocean, to the bridge, and threw it in there for my dad. I thought to myself, you let Daddy go now. But that's not how it was. I was back home again and noticed that I did anything but letting go.
How was the relationship with your grandmother?
It was there, but not like the one with my dad. I haven't been with her that often.
What did the after-death contact feel like to you? Were you afraid? Did you recognize your father right away?
How it felt like? Well, I can only repeat myself by saying that I simply woke up and didn't feel scared. I didn't hold any fear, nothing at all. Everything felt very, very normal. There's Dad. And he's putting the blanket on me right now.
Were you able to see his face?
No. I didn't see his face as clearly, but I knew that it was him and my grandmother.
Was this the first and last encounter, or did you experience more of them later on?
This has been the only encounter.
But this one experience was so vivid that you remember it to this day.
Indeed. As I'm speaking to you right now, I can very clearly see these two standing by the door. I mean, I am 77 years old now. That is quite remarkable in my opinion. It is the only thing that I had throughout my life, my dad. My stepmother, on the other hand, only hit me and was very mean to me. Therefore, I barely remember her, or rather only remember the negative aspects, only the negative. If I think back, I only think about my daddy.
How old were you when this experience happened?
6.5 years old.
6.5. How much influence did this experience have on your worldview? Do you believe in life after death?
Yes. I am not sure how, and I am not sure what it is, but there must be something. People always talk about a soul, which is something intangible apparently, but what I am definitely convinced of is that life, in some kind of way, does continue after death.
You wrote to me, prior to this talk, that you finally wanted to be one of the courageous ones who could openly talk about these kinds of experiences, about after-death contacts. Was there some kind of special occasion that led you to the decision to talk openly about your experience?
I wouldn't say there was one particular occasion. It was rather my will to finally talk about it.
What kind of experiences have you had over the years? Were there people with whom you could talk about this, or did you want to talk about it at all?
During the first couple of years, I was not able to talk about it. My mouth was shut. Not due to fear, though, and I never questioned it or thought, what was that all about? It was very normal. I did not have anybody with whom I could talk about it. But whenever I did talk about it, it has never been taken seriously anyways. You're crazy. That's nonsense. Obviously, I wouldn't say anything at all at some point.
And you never met anyone with whom you could actually talk about it openly?
No, never. There is something else, though, which has to do with this experience that has been, if I may say that, very horrible for me. My stepmother went to my grandfather's house with me, where we had spent the night. This was back then when my father died. My father had been covered with a white linen sheet as he was laying on the bed. On the next day, my stepmother and I returned to the apartment. There, I didn't want it, but I had to go inside the bedroom with her, where my stepmother removed the sheet. I then saw that his whole mouth was covered with froth. I had to look at it.
Not a nice sight.
No. The funeral took place in our small village in Wustermark, which is outside of Berlin. At the funeral, the coffin was open when I entered. She forced me to look at him again. Prior to this, I had to collect flowers, small daisies and so forth. And I eventually had to walk around the coffin and place these small flowers around it. I didn't want to do this, but I had to. It was horrible.
Did your family have any kind of special religious tradition?
No, not at all.
What kind of thoughts do you have regarding your own death now? What do you wish for?
I am not clinging to life. On my desk, there is a photo of my dad. Unfortunately, I don't have many of them, and I always say, "Daddy, you will come and pick me up." I hope and wish for that he will pick me up from somewhere after I die. That I will be with him again. That would make it much easier for me. One can assume that, according to my medical history, I don't have much time left.
One never knows how much there is left.
One doesn't know that, but I actually do want to be with my daddy.
Miss Katens, thank you so much for your openness. I wish you all the best. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you as well.